Welcome to Terra at Home with your host, Chris Moretti.
Good morning and welcome to TERRA at Home. This morning we're joined by Colleen Zimmermann, the green goods buyer for TERRA. Thanks for being with us, Colleen.
My pleasure.
With the approach of fall comes one of my favorite activities, and that's planting bulbs. Bringing bulbs into the garden in the fall ensures a brighter, more vibrant spring, and I think it's just one of the perfect little heralds of the fall season, and we're going to talk a bit about that this morning.
Yes, it's my favorite time too because it's a little bit of planning now for lots of color in the spring.
It's wonderful to see, like you said, a small bit of effort reap such huge rewards later on in the season. So it's kind of a good faith exercise, ensuring that eventually, yes, spring will come as we get through the hard times of winter, and we have something to look forward to when it happens.
Exactly.
So you've got everything that we need to know about bulbs, and you're the expert, the bulb expert. So I'm gonna pick your brain a little bit and figure out what we're gonna do here. Tulips, daffodils, crocus, there are all sorts of bulbs to choose from. What should we be looking for in great bulbs?
In great bulbs, choose a color that you like. There are tons of different colors. Most popular are usually your yellow daffodils. Red and orange tulips have been really popular lately. But the first thing to come up I always like are the crocus and the snowdrops.
Okay, so planning for different seasons and different bloom times of your bulbs is a good idea then. So in planting things like crocus and snowdrops, you've got that first burst of color really early in the spring, and then continue more color for later on in the season with different types of bulbs. Is that what we should be doing?
Yes, if you plan your bulbs correctly, you can actually have flower color from as soon as the snow melts with your snowdrops and crocus, all the way through until you plant your annuals in May.
Okay, so we've got all sorts of different types available, from little teeny ones to great big ones. What's the difference between them, and how do we know how to plant each one?
In general, when you plant, you want to do pointy side up. These are probably one of the smaller ones. It's a crocus bulb, and it's got a slight point to the top, so you know that that's pointy side up, and usually there's a flat bottom on it as well.
Okay.
So these ones, since it's small, those would be the ones that you plant the shallowest. So you don't have to plant those very deep. And then next in depth, you would plant probably a tulip bulb, and you can see this has a pointy side as well. And then this you'd plant about an inch or two below the surface of the soil. And then that would be followed by the deepest depth would be a daffodil.
Okay, so different bulbs with different sizes need to be planted at different depths.
Yes.
Thankfully, the packages in which they come give you all the information you need as to when and how deep to plant them. It'll also tell you when they bloom as well, right? So you can choose ones with different bloom times for a longer season of color in the spring. We've also got some great handy tools here for planting. Because we need to dig a little bit deeper, especially for things like daffodils, which are larger, they need to be planted deeper. We need to get right down there in the soil and make sure that we're planting them effectively. So we've got some tools for that?
Yes. The first tool is, this is a bulb planter. There are two different varieties. There's your standard bulb planter, and then there's the quick release bulb planter. So with this, it actually has measurements on the side so you know how deep you've gone, and then you just put it into the soil and then twist it a little bit, and then the soil will come out with it. And with this one, it's got a quick release that you just press the trigger, and then it'll release a plug of soil, and then you just plant it in.
Okay, so basically we're sort of removing almost like a core sample of soil, and that gives us a space in which to plant the bulb. Drop the bulb in, cover it over, and you're good?
Exactly.
That's not so bad. So that's for individual bulb planting. Other people, myself included, I like planting bulbs in drifts. Can we talk about that?
Yes. For that, you want either a hand trowel or even a spade to plant a larger area. And rather than just planting one little hole, you can plant either a trench or a larger hole, and then that's when you can layer your bulbs within the hole as well.
Okay, so what do you mean by layer bulbs, and how would we do that?
For layering bulbs, for instance, just using the ones here, you dig a hole maybe 4 to 6 inches deep, depending on your soil, and you'd start off by planting your daffodil bulbs first, fill in a little bit of soil, and then plant some tulip bulbs, fill in a little bit of soil, and then lastly you'd plant your crocus bulbs.
Interesting. So within the same area, you've got different bulbs coming up from that same space at different times.
Exactly.
Extending your bloom. Amazing. Combining colors, I'm sure, is sort of a big a big thing. How do we choose? Is there a way? Is there a right and a wrong? Do you just pick what you like?
You can either pick what you like. You can also color code it. There are some collections that we have that come color coordinated.
Okay.
So there are more than one variety in a package that coordinate together. So there's lots of different oranges, and there's like whites and purples and pinks and whites. And it's basically whatever you want. What you have in your home, you can include in your garden outside too.
And since this is sort of your first breath of color in the early season, you could have a bit of freedom then to do something a little unexpected, whereas maybe in your ordinary spring garden with all of your perennials, you've got a really strict color scheme. This could be a good opportunity to sort of break it a little open and do something different and fun.
Exactly. You can go wild and have oranges and reds in the spring, where maybe your summer garden is more pinks and blues.
Perfect. That sounds great. We've got a couple of other things to talk about here. Bone meal is sort of a gardener's best friend when it comes to bulbs. Can you tell us about what bone meal is and what role it plays in planting bulbs?
Bone meal is an organic fertilizer that works on the bulb itself. It's a slow release, so you plant it, you put it in the ground when you plant the bulbs, and then gradually it'll release over time, so that in the spring there's a boost of food there for the bulbs to flourish and to produce really well.
Okay, so it's sort of a little help along for our early flowering bulbs.
Exactly.
And it gets put in the soil right at planting time.
Yes.
So all of your work's done before the snow flies.
Pretty
and then
much.
You don't have to do anything in the spring. A big concern, I think, for many people who have bulbs is squirrels and other types of critters that like to dig them up, munch on them. It's a very common problem. How do we combat that?
It is a frustrating problem, and if you have a really severe problem, I would try to avoid tulips. Tulips are like chocolate to to the squirrels, but they don't really prefer daffodils. Daffodils, one of the things that they don't really like. As well, most packages will have a label on them too that will tell you if they're squirrel resistant or not. The other things, there are deterrents. You can use blood meal. You can also use something like an animal repellent like Critter Ritter, or most of those are pepper based, so they have like caspium in them, so that they just don't like the smell or the taste of it.
Okay, so they sort of make them a little less appealing to our animal friends, or maybe not so friendly friends. I wasn't aware that daffodils are sort of unpalatable to animals, so if you do have a trouble with squirrels always eating your tulips, then daffodils may be a good alternative. The good news for that, though, is daffodils are one of those groups of bulbs where we've seen so many new varieties in all sorts of different shapes, colors, sizes, bloom times. So even with just daffodils, you can still attain a really wonderful spring garden.
With daffodils, there are different sizes. There are ones that multiply really, really well. You can go anywhere from pure white to bright yellow, like the old-fashioned varieties. There's also oranges and pinks that you can get into.
Colleen, thank you so much for the insight. Of course, our bulbs are in now at Terra with all sorts of colors, shapes, sizes, styles, and collections to choose from, so we'll look forward to checking that out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up after the break, some tips for your lawn this fall with Scott from Scott's Canada.
Come and explore the new Terra, where color lives.
When we first bought the house, the lawn was nothing but brown. So I called my father-in-law. He's really good with the lawn. He knows exactly what to do.
Well, I told him, you're Scott's turf builder. He said, well, I got this other stuff. And I told him, take it back to the store. But some brands have filler, like sand and gravel, stuff you don't want on your lawn. Scott's turf builder is pure food. Every granule's 100% nutrition. You get what you pay for every time. You see what happens, Tim, when you listen to your father-in-law?
All food, no filler. That's the Scott's advantage.
Welcome back to Terra at Home, where we're now joined by Scott MacDonald from Scott's Canada. Thanks for being with us, Scott. As always, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
It's this time of year now where we're getting into the fall season, and many people are wondering, what do I do with my lawn? And there are plenty of things that we can do right now to ensure a brighter, greener spring next season.
Definitely. Yeah, fall's a great time. It's a nice time for growing grass because the weather temperatures are great. Lots of moisture in the air, lots of moisture in the ground. And as you mentioned, you can do some really important steps to just make sure not only that you finish off the season nicely, nice healthy lawn, but you get to spring and that grass comes up nice and thick and green.
Absolutely. So overseeding is one of the things that we talk about often in spring. We think about it in spring, but it can be done again in the fall. I think ideally we do this around mid-September, but it really depends on temperatures, right?
Yeah, temperatures are really important. So overseeding is an activity. It's actually better to do it in the fall. It's great to do it in the spring, but fall is actually the ideal time to overseed. But again, as you say, you want to pay attention to temperatures. So ideally, you need to be in that 15 degrees Celsius to 25 degrees Celsius range in order for the grass to germinate well. But really, the act of overseeding, first of all, the reason you do it is eventually over time, your grass plants, they just get tired. You know, like many things, they have a life cycle, and after 4 or 5 years, they're going to get tired and not be as vibrant as they used to be. So overseeding is just replacing those grass plants with new plants so that your lawn remains thick and healthy.
So just like we would in the garden where plants get tired and a little bit done, we want to get rid of them and put new things, fresh things in their place. The lawn is the same thing.
Exactly, yes.
So how do we go about the process of overseeding? I know something that from our times together, seed to soil contact is very important, and that's what we're going for. Extremely
important. Yeah, if there are two things, the seed soil contact is extremely important, as well as the watering process once you put the seeds down.
Okay.
So the process, there's kind of a very simple way to do it, which is mowing your grass low, raking vigorously to remove thatch, to make sure that seed contacts the soil. And then, of course, applying the seed to your lawn, feeding and watering. That's sort of the very simple, basic way to do it, and that I would recommend to everybody. If you want to take one further step, a little bit more effort, but again, ensuring seed soil contact, you'd want to lay down a soil amendment over top of your lawn, about 1/4 inch thick. A high quality soil, such as a Scott's Turf Builder lawn soil, or a triple mix, anything that's a high quality soil, again, to ensure that seed soil contact. So that's a little bit more of the in-depth way to do it.
One little extra step.
One little extra step, yes.
We have some examples of seeds in front of us here, as well as Turf Builder starters. So these are obviously the ingredients we would need in order to ensure successful seeding. So obviously a good quality seed is important, and then feeding that seed as well is important too.
Correct. A lot of people don't realize that, but there's actually a special fertilizer made for applying when you're using grass seed. It's called a starter type of formula. What this is it has a very high phosphorus level, which stimulates root growth in new grass plants. So again, specifically formulated for seed starting. If you are using that kind of a fertilizer, if you're following a proper watering regimen once you put the seed down, then you're going to ensure you have a much higher germination rate, and therefore overall much higher success rate in terms of using grass seed.
Which is clearly what we're going for.
That's the ticket.
If we've missed the boat on seeding, or perhaps you did seeding a little bit earlier, your seeding's already taken care of, feeding is kind of the next thing that comes to mind. We want to make sure that the grass goes into its winter dormancy nice and healthy, nice and strong, and you've got a product for that too. Yeah, correct. There's two things I'd say in terms of feeding when it comes to the fall. So again, early in the spring, say around Labor Day, which we've passed now, but you may want to put down your first fall feeding. In that case, you can use just a regular Scott's all-purpose type of fertilizer. And that will give you, you're coming out of the summer, so maybe your grass has been through a lot of stress, you know, and it's starting to turn green and grow again. So it's a really important time to replace nutrients into your soil. And then about, say, 6 to 8 weeks later, around Halloween, is a nice time frame to remember. You want to apply a fall fertilizer, so such as a Scott's Turf Builder Winter Care. So is this a different kind of fertilizer formulation than the ones that you would normally apply during regular season? It is. Okay. So it has a higher potassium level, so the third number in the NPK on the front of the bag.
So higher potassium, what that's all about is just increasing the overall strength and disease resistance of the grass, of your lawn. So again, prepares it for winter stresses, so your lawn survives well over the winter. It allows your lawn to take up a lot of nutrients and store nutrients over the winter time. So then you're going to come up nice and green and thick earlier in the spring, and your neighbor's going to look at your lawn and say, what did they do? Why is their lawn looking so great so early in the spring?
That's right. Exactly. Okay, so this is a great product to do, like you said, as we get more toward Halloween. So in the coming weeks, we can look to Turf Builder Winter Care to up that potassium level and make sure we're nice and healthy and strong.
Right.
Let's talk weeds. Of course, that as we've come throughout the summer, we may have seen, you know, the dreaded dandelion, all those things in the soil, in the lawn, and fall can be a good time to address those as well.
Definitely, it's actually really important in the fall, because if you do leave them, they will germinate and you'll have more weeds next spring, obviously. Right. So so a lot of people tend to get a little lazier when it comes to fall lawn care.
We get tired of the whole thing, I think.
Yeah. People's mindsets are moving more towards winter and they start to forget about the lawn. But actually, if you take the small step of taking care of your weeds now, you'll significantly reduce the chances of having weeds in the spring.
So we have Weed Be Gone here, which has sort of been a great weapon for us, I guess, in the battle against weeds, since we've gotten into the pesticide ban of Ontario, and now we can't use some of the products that we used to turn to. And Weed Be Gone works using iron. It's a natural product that's safe to use. Can you tell us about how it works?
So chelated iron actually is the ingredient inside the product. It really gets absorbed in through the leaves on the weed. It destroys the cell structure from within. The leaves quickly turn dark brown to a black, and they'll disintegrate, and within 2 or 3 days they should be gone.
All right.
Yeah.
Weed Be Gone indeed.
Pretty simple.
So let's finish off talking about some basic practices. I know one thing that that often comes to mind as well is what to do with all the leaves on the lawn, and you've got a really great simple tip for that too.
Yeah, I do. It's interesting. I've been trying this the last couple of falls, and it's really improving the quality of the soil on my lawn. So what it is taking your mower, taking the bag off, and using it as a mulcher and mulching the leaves. And you do it, throughout the fall as the leaves fall through the season, and you mulch them into tiny pieces, maybe dime size or smaller.
Yeah.
And you just allow them to disintegrate through the the natural process, and they go down into your soil. They're absorbed by the soil. Microbes within the soil will eat them and take them down into the soil. And in the end, you end up with a much better quality of soil come next spring.
Not to mention, it's a little bit easier than raking them and bagging them and bringing them out to the curb.
Taking them to the curb, yes. We don't have to send them to landfill. You don't have to have the trucks come around, and maybe in the end, maybe a few less taxes coming our way, a few less trucks picking up leaves.
Works for me. Thank you so much for the tips, Scott, and for joining us once again on Terra at Home. Much appreciated.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me again, Chris.
Coming up next, Fun in the Kitchen with Chef Rachel.
Come and explore the new Terra, where color lives.
AM 900 CHML is giving you more news when you want it most. Non-stop news weekday mornings 5 till 9, weekday afternoons 3 to 6, with weather and traffic on the 9s. Hear about it first from AM 900 CHML, Hamilton's news talk leader.
Welcome back to Terra at Home, where we're now joined in the kitchen by Chef Rachel Johnstone. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Chris.
We've got an interesting little pile of fun happening here. What's happening?
We do. Today we're going to make a potato gnocchi.
Okay. Gnocchi are one of my favorite things to eat. I've always wanted to know how to make them, so I'm quite excited to understand how the process works.
Yeah, well, it's not really that difficult. A little time consuming. I've done some preparation work to get to the stage that we're at right now.
Okay.
About 3 pounds, I'd say. 3 to 4 pounds of Yukon Gold potatoes.
Okay.
I put them in the oven, 375 degrees for about 2 hours.
So baked potatoes, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. They baked for 2 hours. They probably don't need to bake that long. You can probably do it in a good, hour, hour and a half. But I had them in there for a long time. You want to make sure they're nice and soft. When they come out of the oven, cut a slit in the top, open it up, and I just scooped out the insides.
Okay, so we're dealing with the consistency of a mashed potato. You bake them.
Exactly.
For a time saver, could we do this? Could we boil the potatoes?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, you can definitely boil them in a pot of water. Again, I would keep them whole. It's just probably easier that way to get them out. That's the stage that we're at now. So they're cooled now.
Okay.
Okay, so we have them on a lightly floured surface. We're going to add some flour into here, and we're just going to make a dough.
Okay.
Okay. So we have 1.5 cups of flour. Now, I usually just do a little bit at a time, not the whole amount, because sometimes you need a little less, sometimes you need a little more.
Right.
It really depends on the consistency of your potatoes. We have about a teaspoon of salt that we can put in there too. And I'm just going to start by mixing this together. So it's just like, making any kind of pasta, except we're using potatoes here. So once we get this mixed a little bit, I have an egg that I'm going to put in the middle. So at this point, I'd make kind of like a little well.
Okay.
Just so the egg doesn't go everywhere.
Well, and that egg's going to help us to sort of stick everything together. And
right. And then we have extra flour if we need it. Some more salt in there. So,
this would be a fun little project to do with the kids. Get everyone's hands a little bit dirty, make your own gnocchi.
Yeah, I think kids would really love to get into this. So again, when the egg goes in there, it's going to be sticky. We'll just add more flour. Maybe I can ask you to add some more flour in there.
Sure, I've got our reserve of flour right here as well. You say when. Just a little bit like that.
That's good, yeah. So keep going until you have a nice smooth dough. We'll do a little bit more. A little bit more?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
That's me.
There we go. Yeah, so we'll keep kneading this. Now, when this is all done, we'll put it in a pot of boiling water and cook it probably a minute or two. I mean, just keep your eye on it. It won't take long because it is fresh, but when it floats up to the top.
A little more?
Yep. When it floats up to the top, it's done. So that won't take very long when this is ready, and I'll show you how to form these as well later.
Okay.
The sauce that we're going to do for this, we're going to saute up some vegetables. So we have shiitake mushrooms and chanterelle mushrooms, and some small dices of butternut squash.
Something I love about gnocchi is you can sort of make it whatever you want it to be. After you've got your basis of a gnocchi, you can do a simple oil and garlic sauce. You can do it with your tomato sauce, or something fabulous like we're going to do with some seasonal vegetables that I'm excited about. So
right, they are. When I think about gnocchi and pasta in the fall time, butternut squash and sage is really a nice combination. The sauce that we're going to put it all in is actually just going to be some butter.
Very decadent.
Some brown butter.
Sounds great.
Okay, so this is looking quite nice.
Yeah, you've got a good consistency there. It's kind of workable.
Yeah, it's all, there's a little bit left that's stuck there, so we just want to make sure it all, for the most part, gets up. And then I'll show you how to form these right now since my hands are all messy, and we can work on the rest later. Okay. Stick that in there. All right, at this point, we want to take a piece off of it. So I have this great scraper here that I call it. Use this to cut, but it's not actually going to damage your counter because it's plastic. So cut a little bit off there and just roll it out. Roll it out into a really thin strip, I guess you can call it. The thinner the better, because this is pretty big gnocchi.
Yeah.
I guess you could make it whatever size you want.
Yeah, it could be as big or as little as possible.
So once it's quite even throughout, let's see here. Then that's when you start.
To resemble the gnocchi, I know.
Yeah, slightly. It would probably be a bit easier if my hands were not so sticky. And then from this point, you just want to cut it to the size you like. Maybe an inch or so. There you go.
Great.
So it's simple as that. We have a baking tray here. You can use whatever you like. Lightly flour it, just to put it on while you're, while you're doing the rest.
Yep.
Before you're cooking it, so it doesn't stick. So once you have each gnocchi, you can, form it with a fork. You can make little indents with your fork or your hand. Just roll it. Whatever kind of
fun pattern you
want. So those just go on there.
Great.
Now, for the vegetables.
There you go.
Thank you.
So we've got lots of butter to work with, and that's going to form the basis of our sauce.
Yeah.
We've also got, like you said, a mixture of mushrooms. We've got chanterelles and shiitake, correct? Yeah. And then we've got some beautiful sage to work with and some seasonal butternut squash. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. Not much complex to do with the sauce, really. We're just sauteing everything in butter and then completing it.
Yep. You want to get the butter nice and melted, nice and hot. We'll put all the vegetables in there. They won't take very long. The great thing about cutting the squash up so small is that, it doesn't really need a lot of time to cook.
Okay, so we'll form the rest of the gnocchi over the break, and when we come back, we'll show you how to complete this sensational sauce. We'll be right back.
Come and explore the new TERRA, where color lives.
Come join our colorful team at TERRA, where color lives.
Welcome back to TERRA at Home, where Chef Rachel is putting our finishing touches on homemade gnocchi. Rachel, that butter is brown. Well done.
It is. It only took about 2 minutes. I just put about 8 tablespoons in here, on medium-high heat, and just swirl it around until it's brown. So it's all ready to go.
Okay.
We have the gnocchi that's also ready.
Yep.
We finished forming them. We put them in the pot here. They've all risen to the top.
So that only takes about a minute in the pot because we're dealing with the fresh gnocchi. It just takes a minute to cook.
Right, and then our mushrooms and squash is all sauteed.
We've got some nice fresh sage here to season it as well, and that's going to go in there with the butter as well.
You know what, we should put that in right now, thank you. Get it cooking there. Oh wow, it really brings out the aromas, doesn't it?
It's just heavenly, and it's so seasonal. There's nothing quite like sage in the fall to bring out those flavors of fall vegetables, like our squash that's going in, and of course butter.
Lots of butter in this one.
Lots of butter, the butter sauce.
The veggies in there, and then we can just spoon this right in.
Oh, fantastic. Of course, for the recipe and for the method, you can get this and all of Chef Rachel's recipes online at terragreenhouses.com.
Great, so you just want to make sure that it's all mixed together, and then we can serve it. Maybe garnish it with a couple fresh sage leaves.
Yeah, which we happen to have right here.
Yeah, the smell of the sage really comes out when it hits that pan.
Oh, so decadent and so delicious. So maybe not an everyday meal that I would eat with that butter sauce, but it certainly smells and looks delicious. I can't wait to give it a try.
A nice fall treat, I think.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Rachel. And thanks to all of you for joining us. Join us next week for more great stuff from the kitchen and the garden on TERRA at Home.